Welcome to Butterflies of Wisdom, everyone. Today, not only do you have me, you have Benjamin, and he just told me before we got on this call that he's a fellow interviewer. So without further ado, I'm going to let Benjamin take it away. And Benjamin, please explain to my fans more of what you do and why you got into this interviewing thing.
Yeah, definitely. I'm Benjamin Tyler, and I am founder of Client Enrollment Academy, where I help people that have a message to empower other people how to create a brand around that and deliver a message to empower people while also monetizing it. And I got into this really, got into this because I had my own difficulties and struggles, and it was based around addiction with drugs, alcohol, gambling that ultimately led me 27 years old showering with a garden hose in New Orleans broke, and not just broke financially, broke on life. And I was always pointing the finger, blaming the world why I couldn't have what I wanted. And it just put me into this hole until I turned that finger around and I pointed at myself and I realized I needed to change how I showed up in this world. And how I wanted to change up was sharing a message to hopefully empower people and reduce some of the pain that I felt for so many years. So that's what I do today.
You know what? I got so inspired by your story. I believe it was on Tana Gia's podcast, The Unthinkable Creative, and Tana's also been on my podcast. And Tana's a blind pole jumper, well, he used to be, and so he does a creative podcast. If you guys just type in Tana Gia's podcast, Benjamin's episode, along with, no, I'm not on Tana's podcast. What am I saying? You type in Tana's name on my podcast, he'll come up on my podcast. And then if you type in Benjamin's name on Tana's podcast, the Unthinkable Creative, I believe, Benjamin's will come up. And that's what really drove me to having you on my podcast, Benjamin, is when you said I was showering with the garden hose because I was down on my luck. Now, how did you get out of being down on your luck? Did you have the grace of your family at this point, or were they shunning you?
Well, my biggest issue is when I was 12 years old, I sat down and I pleaded for my mother's affection. She was focused on making my older sister, the prom queen, and that was her obsession. And when she wasn't able to focus on me and show me love and affection, I defined myself as unlovable, and that love was something that you had to earn. And so for me, it was always about being perfect and being that shining image and the prodigal son. So I was always showing, I was high achieving, I was always showing how great I was and always had a smile on my face, but inside it was a dark place. I didn't think I was good enough. I was crying inside and I was relieving that pain with drugs and alcohol. So the support system really didn't exist because I didn't allow it to exist. I didn't allow people to know where I was. I just sat around and acted like everything was great. And for me, like I said before, but I didn't add in details, I was just always pointing the finger with all of my struggles. I was pointing at my boss and the economy, why I wasn't getting the money that I wanted because I was so fueled by stature at the time. I was blaming women as being crazy, the reason why I couldn't maintain a relationship. It was always someone else's fault, and it was in every facet of my life. And it wasn't until it was really a simple thing. I failed a test that was going to propel my career. And when I failed that test, and I opened the sheet of paper, confidently thinking I passed the test, and I saw that I failed. I just had this feeling in my stomach, and it's that feeling when you know you have to have a conversation with somebody that you don't want to have, and when you know that feeling, right? You get that.
Yes, I do.
Yeah, you get that feeling in your stomach. Your mind is racing. You can't sleep. You've got a million thoughts, and I was carrying that for 3 days until one day, sitting on the porch, I finally just said it out loud, like, Ben, you're the issue. You're the reason why this is happening in your life, why you struggle with relationships, why you aren't advancing in your career, why you feel so much strain and resistance in life. And that's the moment where I turned my finger around and I said, I need to change in my environment to get what I want. And that's the first time I said it out loud. I started focusing on how I was approaching and changing my environments around me. And it was at that point when I started investing in myself, getting coaching, buying books, listening to podcasts, and trying to really figure out how I can start achieving what I truly want in this world with the time that I have.
Yeah. Now, was this before Hurricane Katrina that you came to the realization, or was this after Hurricane Katrina? Because I know you said you lived in New Orleans at one point. I got this from Tanner's podcast. So was this after the catastrophe of Hurricane
Yeah,
Katrina?
I came to New Orleans 4 years after Katrina, and my background is civil engineering, so I went down there because there's always something in my heart that I wanted to help other people. It was always in me. I think that's in most people. Most people have this spiritual thing, whatever you want to call it, to help and empower other people in any way they can. And after college, I grew up in Wisconsin. That's what drove me to New Orleans, because it would be a great place to help, rebuild a community. The only other problem is it's also a great place to drink.
Yeah, let's just say that. Wait.
Yep.
Wow. Mardi Gras can do a number on you if you're not careful.
Mardi Gras.
On
yep.
if not careful. I mean, geez, let's just say that. And it's not the healthiest food choice to live there either. Geez, the fried beignets and all that yummy catfish and everything else. So, well, that's a smart decision that you made with yourself to get yourself out of your bad luck.
Thank you.
Well, you're welcome. And now I heard on Shannon's podcast that you also have a podcast. Can you tell my listeners a little bit about that?
Yeah, so I had an old podcast. My podcast, An Evolving Lifestyle, that's still out. You can check it out on iTunes. Was when I really started my entrepreneurial journey, and it was interviewing people that have overcome adversity, were doing things entrepreneurially, and just some thought leaders talking about their expertise and what they were doing in their life to continue growing. Because as you know, and I know, life and success and getting what you want isn't something, a formula. It's just continually growing in your life. And now I'm in the process of launching a new podcast, my second podcast, which is Sales for Coaches and Consultants, where I teach marketing and sales to people that are looking to build businesses.
How cool is that? What made you want to launch the second podcast?
Well, it's why Client Enrollment Academy was really built, and that was, as I was sharing my message and I was in the personal development space, people asked me, Ben, how are you doing this? I wasn't getting a lot of people that wanted personal development. People wanted to share their message and their story and impact people. So it all evolved around there, and you got to go where people want you, and that's where the Client Enrollment Academy started. That's why I wanted to create a second podcast, Sales for Coaches and Consultants, because I want to help people in every platform that I possibly can.
Yep. And now, what has been your biggest entrepreneurial success?
The biggest success entrepreneurial. Oh man, that's a hard one. I would just say my business is just sharing my story, and my biggest success has always been the success of my clients. And that sounds really cheesy, but as a coach trying to help people create what they want, no matter how small the win is, those are the success stories. That's what pumps me up. I can sit around and be successful and look at my bank account and be happy that money's there and I'm making income, but really that's not the driving force. It's helping other people actually do what they want to do in this world, because most people, statistics show, aren't happy. They're not happy with their jobs. They're not happy with what they're doing, and just being able to empower people is really where my success comes from.
Well, gee, you had the same powerful voice in Tana's interview with Tana as you do in this interview with me. You like sharing your story. Now, what has been your biggest hardship in doing this online success business and being the coach?
It's the balance, I think, with everybody, of understanding that you can't be perfect. I just did a post today on my Facebook account talking about perfectionism and how it holds me back, and it holds so many other people back. We feel that we have to create these powerful messages before we can start out. We think we have to be this rock star before we can pick up, a guitar or whatever it is. And it holds us back, this idea of perfectionism. And it still holds me back today. And the more and more vulnerable I can get, the more success I can have. But it's always that battle that we all have inside of us. And, you talk about working with kids. They're a perfect example. You have these kids and you see how fast they grow, and everyone's like, man, whatever science says why kids are such fast learners about neuroplasticity. To me, it's not that. It's that they're just so willing to be imperfect in life and just go after things and fall down and laugh when they fall down and get up again and run around and then fall down and cry and bawl for about a minute, and then they get up and they do the same exact thing and run around. And that's what life is. That's what growth is.
I have decided when I walk into that door, and Ben and I have been in this field of education for 11 years, and I'm making a clear pivot as of this year into next school year. But I have decided that kids don't care if I am having a bad day. Kids do not care if I'm having a bad day. They just want to give me a hug or give me something. They don't care if I need it. They don't care if they don't care if I'm having a bad day. They just want to see this win.
They care. They also just don't care about judgment. They just want to do. Like a kid will pick up crayons and paper and just start drawing, and when they're done with the drawing, no matter what it looks like, they want to share it to the world. They want to share it to you, and they want to share it to their parents, and there's so much happiness in what they created, and somewhere in life, we lose that.
Yeah. Can we get back what kids are now teaching us? Can the adults get back, and I'm dead serious, can these solo entrepreneurs get back what kids are teaching us?
We have to, and I think we can. It's just understanding that we can't be perfect. and that our imperfections are often the most beautiful thing that we have. The more and more that I show that I make mistakes and I falter, the stronger my brand gets, the more people that want to work with me because, there's this stigma that we just have to always be on, but we're humans.
Yeah. Yeah. And no, I realized that this morning, my day job does support this podcast, and they support teaching diversity like this, tomorrow. And when I was doing something with all of my kids this morning, one of the staff members asked how many kids were taught by Miss Wynn. And granted, this was preschool through 8th grade. And about 10 kids raised their hand saying, yes, we were taught by Miss Wynn. And they were just so excited to see, not to see me, but then they were so excited to see what we all had in store for them. But they somehow didn't care if it was 8:30 in the morning and Miss Wynn just walked in to do this assembly. They wanted to see me. They didn't care if my morning started off a little bit rough, which it did because I'm not an early morning person, especially when I have to work at 8:15, but that's okay. I only get to do these things once in a while. I did it for the kids this morning. But as I said, these kids don't care. As you said, these kids want to draw pictures and then show them to me. They just want love and attention. So now I'm going to get back to our podcast interview here without talking about kids. So what would you say to first of all, what would you say to the person who is in the same position you were before you got yourself out of it? And what would you say to your younger self?
So what I would say to somebody that's using some form of what we call addiction, something to ease that emotional pain, is that, there's a Jim Rohn quote that I love, and it's, you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. And often you need to look around at who you're spending your time with. Where do you want to be? What do you want to achieve? And then look at the people you're with. I did that. I remember sitting in a bar one time when I was still drinking a lot, and I was sitting there, and I was with these people, and I started looking around who I spent my time with, and at the bar, I'm like, man, I am just bored out of my mind. Why do I keep coming to this bar, watching television, doing nothing? This isn't even entertaining. And it's realizations like that. You got to look at who the people you are with, because that's your motivator. And the younger person in me, the 12-year-old, the 15-year-old, the 20-year-old, I would have said, let somebody know. You don't have to keep this inside of you. Find somebody you can share this with. And it doesn't have to be your family. It doesn't have to be a friend. But find somebody where you can start consoling your thoughts with. Because the more you just keep your doubts and your pain and all those things inside of you, it becomes a cancer. And it consumes you. And the more and more you keep it inside, the more locked down you get in life. And I just feel, the biggest regret I've ever had in my life was trying to do everything by myself.
Yeah, I had a stop and smell the roses moment once in '06 and then once in 2010. And both of them, I admit, in my book, I Come a Win, which you guys can go check out. It's on Amazon. But after the 2010 Stop and Smell the Roses moment, I decided that, look, it not only takes my family to help me, it takes my friends, it takes their friends, it takes this podcast, it just takes everyone. So as I agree with you, Ben, I would say if you're stuck in a position, especially using alcoholism and using drugs, get help. Get help ASAP. I know there's 1-800 numbers for drug addiction. I know there's 1-800 numbers for alcohol addiction, but get help before it spirals down, and then the next thing you know, you're not seeing the next light of day.
I agree with you 100%.
Yeah. So people think, oh, I can do this by myself. Oh, no, you can't. No, you can't. And the reason why I say that is because I just lost a semi-good friend of mine to alcoholism as of last week. And so, you can't necessarily do all these amazing things by yourself, especially run a company and especially get out of alcoholism and drug addiction. No, there's no way. There's no way.
And
so,
yep, and it's not even just like drugs and alcohol and addiction that you need help with. I mean, we all have greatness inside of us. We all have great things we want to do in this life. I truly believe that. And you look at anybody who's ever stood in their greatness, stood in who they wanted to be in life, and fully, vibrantly, authentically lived that, never did it themselves. You have to have a supporting team. You have to allow people to support you to have the successes that you want in life. Nobody's built their greatness by themselves.
No one's built the greatness by themselves. I certainly did not build this podcast by myself. It took you guys to listen to it and get it to where it is today. No one's here saying, I'm great, I don't need help. Everyone needs help.
Yeah, and you look at your production. I mean, I experienced it. You have an assistant that helps you with scheduling and getting your emails out and making your life more efficient. There's so many ways you can get help. You just have to be able to be willing and humble enough to do it.
Thank you very much. To accept help. I mean, no, without my assistant, without my producer and / my assistant, I wouldn't be doing half the work I'm doing on the disabled advocacy front. And someone asked me today, is a disabled cerebral palsy group in this valley? I'm based in Aspen, Colorado. And I said, no. And she goes, well, why don't you share your experience with cerebral palsy people? And I'm like, I do. I share my experience on this podcast. I share it nationwide. That is my support group. That is my support group. No, I don't talk about it very much. So for me to accept help is easy. I just accepted help from age 1 to now, but that's because I didn't know any different. I knew at age 6 I had a disability, so I had to learn how to accept help. But as we talked about earlier, everyone needs to accept help. I mean, we all can't be perfect.
Yeah, and it's really what you look at anybody's downfall or their issues with getting to the next level, or whatever that level may be. It just really always comes down to there's a humility issue or a vulnerability issue of not reaching out and allowing somebody to pull you up to the next level. Because we all have our weaknesses. We all have our fears. And the only way I've ever found to keep moving up is having somebody when I'm too weak, when things get tough, to reach my hand up so they can pull me to the next level, pull me up to play in that area. And it's hard, and we have thousands of excuses. We don't have money, we don't have time, we don't know how to connect with people, but they're really just all things inside. We can find those things if we truly want it. We just need to honor that feeling inside.
And if someone tells me one more time they want me to join a cerebral palsy support group, I'm going to say, listen to my cerebral palsy support group. I just call it a different name. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
I call it Butterflies of Wisdom. I have a cerebral palsy support group. I interview all these fascinating people like you, Ben. And so we make so many excuses in our lives, but we all need to stop and ask for help.
We do. And I mean, that's the magic secret. How have you achieved everything you've done, Benjamin? How do you keep doing what you do, Benjamin? How do you get your message out there, Benjamin? Well, I guess the root of it all is because I've always had, at one point when I finally decided to change, I've always had people around me that could help me and support me and root me on.
Yeah. And it may not be your parents. It may be the next door neighbor. But let's hope that parents are moving these kids on. But parents are so into letting their kids be doctors and lawyers and nurses and everything else, that they're so focused on academic standards that teaching diversity and asking for help is something that I don't think the next generation is learning personally.
Well, it's not just that. This hopefully doesn't come into an educational thing, but you look at today's society and educating children, and parents are more competitive about their children than children are. And the reason why I feel is that most of these parents, there's something in their life and their past that makes them feel inadequate, and they want to make their children, they live the life through their children, and they put the pressure on their children. And a lot of the times, these thing about kids having to get good grades and having to go to college and having to do this and that and be good at sports and needing 5 tutors if they're not the best in the class with a group of kids. That's just the parents, trajectorying their own feelings of inadequacy in themselves. And it's pressured on the children. And it's just, parents push children to be good and better and the best because they don't feel good enough inside.
Yeah. And then I wonder why the children are so, put it mildly, helicoptery and close to mommy and daddy, and model call about I want to be close to mommy and daddy, because parents are not teaching their kids to be as independent as they can be.
Yeah. Yep.
And
I agree with you 100%.
Forget about going to play outside with the soccer ball. No, they want to play Call of Duty inside.
Mm-hmm.
Inside. Oh boy. Forget about bouncing the basketball on basketball court outside. Hello? They want to play Call of Duty, be locked up in their rooms, and then they wonder why the obesity rate is going up, and then they wonder why kids are getting down on their luck, and kids are starting to use drugs and alcohol and all this yucky stuff at early age.
But it's not, I mean, when it's not only that, I agree with you, but it's also why, kids aren't doing art anymore. they're not the creative side isn't being stimulated because that's, kids need to learn how to do reading. They need to learn how to do math so they can pass their standardized tests. And everything now is a standardized world. Like, my kid needs to be having a math tutor, and not my kid should be learning to play the piano or should just finger paint and do these things that are creative. And we don't give kids outlets anymore. It's always they have to be on. They have to be perfect. They have to just keep succeeding and achieving. And life isn't always about succeeding and achieving. Life's about being creative and having fun and not being the best, but still being willing to, not afraid to show people what you're doing. And it's just, we're living in a perfectionist society, and it's holding so many people back today, when really the opportunities for people to create, to share a message, to build their own business is easier now than ever with the internet. I mean, look what you're doing. What you would be able to create, you're creating all these things and sharing your message and impacting hundreds of thousands and millions of people because you have the internet. And you're willing to be vulnerable, and you're not looking at your disabilities as a reason to hold you back, when, there's a world out there of people that feel inadequate because they've been always pressured to be the best.
Yeah. I definitely agree. Now, where can people find you, and where can people find your new podcast, and where can people find your own podcast as well?
Yeah, I mean, the podcasts you can find on iTunes. My old podcast is An Evolving Lifestyle. The new podcast, Sales for Coaches and Consultants. You can Google it. You can Google my name, Benjamin Tyler. Google's a powerful thing. But if you want to get connected with me and just build a relationship, the best way is Facebook. Just look me up on
Facebook. Guess what? The best way is Facebook to get a hold of Ben. And, I know that for a fact, because what did Ben do? He friend requested me, and he got a hold of me on Messenger and said, I'm really excited. So, yes, if you want Ben on your podcast, go ahead and look him up on Facebook, and he is very good at responding to Facebook Messenger. And where else do you hang out then, or is Facebook it?
Facebook is pretty much the only place. I'm not on Instagram. I am, but I'm not active on Instagram, Twitter, YouTube. I stick to a home base, which for me is Facebook.
Which for you is Facebook, okay. I was just making sure, and again, if you guys want to go find Ben's other interview with Tanner, just look up The Unstoppable Creative in iTunes, and Ben should be on there. If you want to hear how Tanner started his podcast, just go back in the archives of Butterflies of Wisdom. Tanner was a phenomenal guest.
Tanner's a great guy.
Yeah, Tanner's just a phenomenal guy in his own way. And so, before I let you go, do you have any questions for me?
Of course I do. My biggest question is, you've written a book, you teach, you have a podcast. What do you do to keep your energy level so high?
What do I do to keep myself sane? What do I do to keep myself sane? Well, I because of me having cerebral palsy, when my body goes, it's time for you to relax, I listen to my body. So that's how I keep myself sane. You have to give yourself self-love when it's appropriate. And with my pre-existing condition, even though it's not a joint condition by any means, I just have to give myself self-love like everyone else.
And I guess the other question I'm really curious about is how do you manage the voice in you, inside of you, that gives you excuses not to keep going forward and creating. Because, I mean, you have, like a lot of people with disabilities, you have 1,000 excuses you can give yourself that you don't listen to.
Well, how did I do what I did this morning, which if you guys go search on Country Days, Aspen Country Days Facebook page, you'll see a video of what the kids did today, and of course I was involved. But to answer Benjamin's question, how do I keep my inner voice from saying, no, you can't do this? Well, I was raised as an able-bodied woman with the sign note of cerebral palsy, and so that's how I keep my inner voice in saying, yes, you can. And a person asked me today, they surprised me, they said, okay, we're going to put you in an awkward position, which I knew they were going to put me in. But they said, well, do you want to do this? And do you want to do that? I said, hello, you're the physical therapist. I pay you to give me PT. They're like, yeah, but we want you to be on the board. I'm like, hello, it's my health. Of course I'm on board. So, what doesn't stop me is if I don't fall over, I don't stop myself. Then if I fall over, I get right back up and dust myself off. But the inner voice doesn't come out of me very much.
Well, that's good, and that's inspiring.
Yeah, the inner voice doesn't say, no, you can't do this very often. Now, that I need to give myself self-love just like the average person would.
Yep, it's one of those things I still struggle with, is the self-love, and I think all of us do, but every once in a while you just gotta say, you know what, I'm good enough.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So, do you have any closing piece of advice for my listeners today?
Yeah, I'm really just whatever's inside of you, that feeling of whatever you want to do. So many people say just take action. Just take action, but it starts even before that, and just honor that feeling and ask what that feeling is and really get connected with what it is that you want to do, what that feeling is, and reach out to some people if you need help to figure out what it is, and then start taking whatever steps you can to make that feeling become a reality. And it's not something, there's no magic formula, and it's,
I definitely agree with you. I definitely agree with you. And if you guys want to start a podcast, go ask me, or go ask me, because I've been doing this for a long time. But you have to be passionate about what you want to do, and I'm sure Ben would agree with me on that, because without passion, you're not going anywhere. Without a helping hand and passion, you're not going anywhere.
100%, because everything you want is a struggle, and you have to overcome adversity, and passion's the only way that keeps you getting up when you fall down.
Yep, exactly. So, this podcast has been sponsored by Go Kitter, Kitter. This podcast is also sponsored by Grace by Grit. Grace by Grit is giving you a 20% off code. Their athletic line out of California. They're lovely. And if you want to go hear their story, go ahead. It's back in the archives. Unfortunately, when I say back in the archives, you might have to come and calling me to find back in the archives, because unfortunately iTunes only shows the first 100 episodes. Yes, maybe someone can Facebook, Apple, iTunes for me, and or tweet them and say, please, please, please quit showing the first 100 episodes. But as I said, if you want to go look up Ben's podcast, please, 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 please go look up Ben's podcast. If you go want to look up Tanner's podcast, The Unstoppable Creative, please look up Tanner's podcast, and please leave a review on every single podcast we talked about today, and please subscribe so that way you can hear more of phenomenal stories on Ben's podcast and his new podcast. And then when it comes into iTunes, I will keep you guys updated and holding Ben to that it must come into my new podcast. He's laughing at me because he's like, when you're right. He's like,
yep.
I think of that. So I'm holding you to that, Ben, that you must send me the link so I can put it in a show notes and give you guys an update.
I'm glad you're on my team.
I am happy too, Ben, and I hope you guys enjoyed another fabulous episode. And yeah, just ask for a helping hand and be passionate about what you want to do in life, and then it will take you as far as you want to take it. And I hope you guys enjoy another fabulous episode. Thanks to you guys.